get Colin on, and if you spotlight him there. So, okay, get rid of me. Hey, Colin, thank you very much for
Hey
your time.
there, how you doing? Okay.
So, Colin, you've known Nick a long, long time, more than most, and so if you would just give us a little bit of background and your relationship with him, if
Yeah.
you would, please.
Yeah, I've known Nick now. He's probably going back around about 33 years. We pretty much grew up in the same part of the UK. We grew up the same industry, starting in the same way. We both had apprenticeships. We sort of mirrored each other's transition into wood turning, as it were, and that led to a lot of great conversation, of course, and similarities. Um, I'm, like all of us, it's been a tough few weeks, to be honest. In fact, it's been a tough few months. But through all of it, it's been certainly on Nick's part. Whenever Nick's been phoning me and speaking to me, he's always spoken to me about, oh, the next thing, what we're going to do next, my next procedure. Or there's never been any doom and gloom. It's always been with positivity. And I'm going to say, if there's anybody in the world that hasn't led a full life like Nick, or has led a full life like Nick, he's done so much. Not just, and I'm talking outside of our wood turning world now. I don't mean what he's achieved. I mean things he's done. He's led life completely to the full, and his almost boyish like want for excitement has been really addictive to me. We've gone through shows together. We've gone through good times, we've gone through bad times, and Nick has always been the one that's sort of been the it's a little bit of a cliche, but a little bit of a shining light really for me. I want to say, and you're going to hear a lot of people saying like Nick's like a brother and all this sort of thing, but he's been one of those people more than a friend that you're happy to be silent with, and those people. If you're in a room, you've had enough. You're not talking. It's not awkward. It's just you're just there. And the other thing I think that marks a someone that's ultimately close is the fact that you can call them day, night, whenever. It's not a problem. Um, and it's always been like that. I've been very, very lucky in the fact that Nick has seen both of my boys grow up and influence them in some sort of way. And Finley, my eldest, is great friends with Ruben now. Vicky, my wife, good friends with Polly. So when I said in my post to on Facebook and Instagram that our families have been intertwined, it's dead true. And I couldn't think of a better family person to be intertwined with. He's awesome. We're all going to talk about Nick's creativity and how he's inspired us and all that sort of thing. But I think for me, it's the friendship and just just being close
Yeah.
to someone makes it more special for me.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at any of this. This week coming is going to be a tough week. Not looking at any of it as um, regretful, mourning, loss, anything like that. This is all about celebration now, and I want to. So I think that's probably self-preservation, but I want as many people as possible to celebrate Nick for whatever reason they personally have to celebrate him.
Yeah, that's excellent words, Colin. And Colin very kindly put up a link there as well to a video that he did with Nick and Jimmy Clues in Vegas. And if you haven't seen it, check out Colin's YouTube. It's great fun with the three guys together. Lucky enough to have those experiences over there, and it seemed like a blast, Colin. And what people see on camera, like, I know what probably went on behind the camera too. It must have been great fun.
This is the other thing. This is the other thing that Nick's given me personally, and I know he's done it to lots of other people. He shared his friends, and now I'm fortunate to have had a lot of his friends now as my personal ones. There's a few watching tonight. I can see Brad's name up there, Brad Davis, and I'm very lucky to be able to now have friends like that directly through Nick. There's the guys in Georgia. It's almost like a family that he built over there, and desperate to go and see all of them personally again, just to say hi. But that's what Nick brought to it. He certainly opened up the US for me. He shared his family out there with me, and yeah, that's what I'm really grateful for that, because that's something you don't learn to do things like that. He makes it happen.
But let alone would you know he was in the room, Colin. You knew he was in the building. There was a presence about him no matter where he went. Everybody was just drawn to him, weren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, we, as a lot of us here, we demonstrate, we teach, we do all those sorts of things. We give talks, and which Nick done for a lot longer than I have. But when Nick done a talk or demonstration, he commanded the room. He didn't just give a demonstration. He commanded the room, and not with technicalities, with fun. He had a giggle about it. He had a laugh. I've just finished a course on his behalf at the Max Carey Woodturning Trust, something that was really fond part of his life, and his legacy there was the horn, the honking horn. So whenever I need to demonstrate, whenever you want to come, I need you to come back, I'm going to honk the horn. And I was honking that with Nick's gusto this weekend just gone. So that
Uh,
made us all giggle.
yeah, that's traditions he's created, and brilliant if you keep that alive. Yeah, that's excellent. Colin, you did something that nobody else did with Nick. You spent, was it 7 weeks with Nick on the road? Tell us a bit about that trip. That must have been phenomenal with everything that you guys did.
Absolutely, 7 weeks on the road with someone in extreme close proximity, or in his truck for 7 weeks, 7,000 miles, and 26 states in all. Um, was when we started planning this. We started planning it before the COVID pandemic, and it was put off for like about 3 years in the end before we started doing it. And there was a couple of things that made me nervous. First of all, the fact that I was going to be away from my wife for so long. I'd never been away from her for that long, and I know what a wet wipe I am when I am away for a week or even two. Um, but then the fact that we were going to be together, me and Nick had a real fond relationship, absolutely. But I know how difficult Nick could be when he gets hungry. So that was my main concern. Um, and he warned at the beginning. He said, "We get 3 hours, and then I need to eat," and that was a cycle. And I could tell when he was getting hungry because he hit the edge. The change was dramatic. But do you know what? Yes, he knew that I needed to talk to Vicky. He would regularly say, "Is it Vicky time?" And he'd give me a bit of space so I could give Vicky a call. He put the right soundtrack on at the right time, and he said, "I think it's about time we find a diner somewhere." Um, and we would just, if we'd had a tiring day, we just wouldn't talk. We just drive, listen to music, and just drive. It was fantastic. The other thing I would say, um, Nick liked a comfortable bed, and there's a couple of occasions, one in Amarillo where we got to a hotel, and we on my job on the road was to book the hotel in advance, and so I booked hotel two twin room, and we got there and said, "Ever so sorry, it's a double room." And of course, Nick wasn't going to sleep in the same bed as me, so I said, "Look, I'll take the floor, you take the bed." That happened 2 or 3 times, only until we got to the most amazing places. And I remember once at Tom and Melinda Worsling's, they had this wonderful four-poster that Nick had already slept in once before he'd been there. He said, "Your bed tonight, mate," and he took the camp bed. And then another time at Pamela and Arthur Aveling's, most beautiful room, and Nick said, "Your turn again." So he had the camp bed when it mattered, um, along most of the trip. Um, I give the old man the bed. It was fine.
Yeah, how considerate was he? Helen, and sorry, folks, I should have introduced Helen at the start, even though you all know her, but manners. Sorry, Helen. So say hi, Helen, first.
Hi, Helen.
Yeah, hi, Helen. Helen, there's a question there from Brad for Colin, if you would relay that, please.
Oh
There is
no.
Colin. Brad is asking, how many miles do you drive Nick's truck?
I drove about 10.
Oh, you chicken.
And then it was in the middle of Utah. Or no, we hadn't even got to Utah before Utah. And the sat nav said, now take route, whatever it was, for the next 646 miles. So he pulled over and said, here you go. You can get behind the wheel. And it was straight road. I could see the horizon. It was perfect.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. We'll eventually teach him, Colin, to drive on the correct side over there. But now.
Well, I don't know whether it was a combination between Nick's precious truck or my lack of US experience.
Yeah. Well, we do know that truck was his pride and joy. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. A big boy's toy, huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
But thank you so much, Colin, for your time. But fantastic memories, and in as much as you said we will be all mourning, but there's so much to celebrate from Nick Agar as well, isn't there?
There's
Yeah,
one thing I always think of, and I said it before, that Nick will always be with us, with me. I feel things like the honking incident at Matt Scary, all those sorts of things. I haven't stopped thinking about him since. Now it's like mourning any family member, I guess. That never goes away. But I think Nick, not just with me, but Nick standing beside me. That's where he always was, and that gives me great confidence. I've sort of coined this phrase at home now: "Be more Nick." If ever I'm feeling a bit low or the imposter syndrome creeps in, just be more Nick, and that makes you stand up a little bit taller, makes you puff your chest out a little bit more.
yeah, yeah. He will be the first to give you a kick in the ass, wouldn't he? Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
enjoy it and live it, and he sure did. Yeah, it's wow. Yeah. All right, Colin.
Well,
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on, and thanks for sharing that video out for people. Helen, pop the link into the chat box. Do watch it, folks.
no problem.
There's a lot of good content there about Nick. So be sure. I do have other videos, but I don't have the rights to let them out, so I'm not going to. But anyway, I think you have enough there to be watching. But yeah, thank you so much, Colin. Appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okie doke, Helen. So, is there anything we missed in the chat box?
That's not. Mike's just saying he can relate to long driving for weeks at a time. I know Mike does big long drives.
Yeah, but as we talked about earlier, prior to the start of the meeting, America especially, the drive for days, not distances. So, but anyway, alrighty. Just a couple of things I should have mentioned in the housekeeping as well, folks. So I have a good few photographs here. I'll do my best to mention the people that sent them over. Andy Wolf sent over some fantastic photographs. So, people's intellectual property and credits and one thing and another. So I'll do my best to give people credit on things. Now, Barry Taylor, Nick's brother-in-law. Did I just say that man's name right? I just want to make sure. Forgive me if I do make any mistakes with names and things here today, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff come in that I didn't know, and hopefully some of you will find some of this interesting. So Barry Taylor is Nick's brother-in-law. Barry is married to Nick's sister Polly, who looked after Nick with other people for his last 6 months during his illness. So he sent me over some links to internet stuff and things that he found. So I went in, and he did tell me the links were broke, and I tried going everywhere. I spent hours going in from different directions, different providers and everything, and I could not get any of them to work. So unfortunately, what I have, the information that I do have here, I'm going to read out in the next while. So pardon me if I bore you with my delivery, not the content. Some of it is a bit disjointed because I tried to put it together the best I could. So bear with me, okay? So some of this you may know, some of you may not. So Nick was born on the 13th of May, Friday the 13th, in 1966 in London. His family moved to Devon while he was still young, a dream of his dad's, who had been evacuated to the lovely Baston Creek at Salcombe during the war. Again, apologies if I'm pronouncing any of these places incorrectly. So Nick's earliest work included helping young people with learning needs. Nick spent a little time in art college. There was more to that, but I've really kind of condensed down some of this. Amongst other careers, Nick was also an outdoor pursuits instructor, after which he did a City and Guilds course in forestry. During a tree falling incident, Nick broke his back and was unable to do the forestry work for a period of time. But as more and more machines were coming into the industry, then Nick decided to move on. At some point down the line, his mum spotted an apprenticeship at Dartington with a certain Dougie Hart. Now, Dougie Hart's a name that I heard Nick mentioning before, and this guy predates social media and everything else, so hence why you won't have heard of him. But wait till you hear what came out of this guy's stable. A well-known, when I say stable, I mean his workshop, okay? A well-known wood turner and a real character. His car was an ex-hearse. For anybody, different countries doesn't know what a hearse is. It's for bringing corpses, coffins to the funeral home or to the wherever. So this was a huge turning point for Nick. He started really discovering his creative potential there. So this is a quote from Nick, the rest of this. The person who has probably had the most influence on his turning in general is Dougie Hart, a name that most people will not be familiar with. It is through some of his A-list students that his influence has spread worldwide. His workshop was at Shiner's Bridge in Devon, where he employed Wendell Crang. What a wonderful name in brackets. Dougie was a wonderful character who drove a hearse and often delivered Devon's craftsmen's work to London. Dougie was always ready to help any aspiring turner. I visited him twice before turning became my full-time career. The first time Wendell was sticking made in Scotland labels on Iroko bowls. The style of labels that they were using impressed me. Sorry, this is where I was a bit disjointed, some of this, and I tried to put it together. Without any second bidding, he told me the source. So that those bits missing out of there somewhere. The second time was around 1972 when I was close to going full time. I was bemoaning the fact that I couldn't afford to work in teak, which was very much in vogue at the time. He promptly told me of a source in High Wycombe. He told me to buy shorts. Shorts would be just the offcuts, we would call them. Which man to see and tell him Dougie sent you. I dealt with this company for years after being pointed in their direction. Dougie's legacy is rich and lives on through those who pass through his workshop. So here's names for you guys. Richard and Simon Raffin. Yes, Richard Raffin had a brother that was a turner. Cecil Jordan and Nick Agar, just to mention a few. That was the end of Nick's quote. So I did a little bit of writing for the Woodturning magazine in the UK. Karen Scott asked me for a few words, just to something they wanted to put in at the end of this week gone out for their upcoming issue. They are going to do an upcoming tribute for him as well. Looking forward to that. So I just added in a few more bits for that. So I don't believe there's a wood turner that has not heard of Nick Agar. Nick had a presence about him that lit up any room when he entered it. He interacted with everybody at the same level regardless of their skill set. Nick was definitely a people person. Every event Nick demonstrated at, you were sure that room would be full. Always joking with people, he still managed to teach and educate thousands of people in a fun, entertaining way. Nick had travelled the world teaching and demonstrating at clubs and symposiums. He was one of the top turners in the world and was always highly sought after for appearances. Nick was encouraged to pursue his dream of working in the USA full-time by companies that now carry his signature tools and series. King Arthur and of course Chromacraft, most of you will know, and he was involved with a lot of other companies too. But I remember Nick saying, you have to chase your dreams won't chase you. Very true words. And cancer and all its cruelty took one of the world's finest artists away way before his time. Characters like Nick Agar are few and far between. So, Nick, you'll be truly missed but never forgotten. Let the shavings you create above us rain down on us to keep your memory alive. On behalf of everyone in the woodturning community, we offer our deepest sympathies to Nick's family and friends. R.I.P, my friend. So, that was just a few words, and thank you, Barry, for that. And again, thanks to Colwyn for it. But, Helen, is there anything in the chat box when I was off screen there?
There's a few comments there. Pat's saying to what Colwyn was saying, he says he relates to having imposter syndrome. Maybe he'll talk to Nick. And Pete Meyer has popped in that a hearse would make a great wood hauler.
Well, there was a fantastic space in the back of him, of course. So, yeah, and great storage in the bottom of a hearse as well, what people didn't realise. All right, so is there anybody there that wants to come on with any comments before? Because I have mainly a slideshow to go through, and the comments are, I have them attached to each picture to make my life easier. So if there's anybody there, just wave at the screen, hit me or whatever in the chat box, whatever you want, and we'll get you on there.
Yeah,
Um,
we've got Pat there with his hand up, so I'm going to put him straight on there.
please do. Thank you. Hey, Pat.
Hey there. What I was going to say is I did not meet Nick until the Mid-Atlantic Symposium 2 years ago, I believe it was, and he electrified the room, as you all are aware. And when I was out at Brad's place in October with the group for a week, uh, that's when he started having some real issues and all. And in talking to him, I realized a quote that was mentioned to me back when I did hospice nursing just was very appropriate. And that was, the more you live, the less you die. And as we spoke, he kept, as Colwyn said, speaking of the future. We were there with Hans and Jakob Weislag, and a lot of their work, their measurements are all metric. And he mentioned, in his teaching, he didn't have a lot of calipers. I happen to have a box of 10. So I said, how about I send them to you when you get back on your feet? And he was all for it. And I sent them off.
Excellent. Thank you, Pat. Okay, John Lane there. Helen, please. Unmute, please, John.
Okay. I met, see, I'm trying to think when it was. I probably started 2016, I think it was, when I first started, first started talking to Nick, as I was inviting him to Alaska to come up and do our symposium. And then we finally met up, I think it was 2017 in Kansas City for the AEW symposium. And that's where, and then he finally come up here along with Glenn Lucas in 2018. And at that time when he come up, I had started making these ball caps like the one I got on in a camouflage color, and Nick absolutely fell in love with these hats. He said, "Can I have one? Can I have one?" And by the time he left, he had 3 of them. And he says, "I'll guarantee you, I will wear these everywhere I go." And to this day, he had this ball cap on. Matter of fact, in the picture there behind you, Pat, he has one of these ball caps on. I watched the tribute Cohen had up with him and Jimmy and Nick. And I was looking at that, and I noticed right above the wall above Nick was, lo and behold, one of these caps hanging up there, even when he was in Las Vegas. So to this day, every time I wear the ball cap, I'll think of Nick. And matter of fact, when you did the Meet the Woodturner interview with him, that's when he told me, I need a new one because this one's wore out. And so I sent him 2 more of them in the mail. So he's worn a lot of these Alaska Woodturner ball caps and forever. And then when he did get here, excuse me, I'm dry this morning. After we got home from one of the symposium days there, I started asking him about a question about something on the Sunset Bowl. And he said, let's go out in the shop and turn one. He says, so he and I, after having all day in the damn symposium, we go out in my shop here right behind me. And I think he turned the little one because he used my little lathe, and I turned the other one, and we sat here and went through step by step. And these will be forever in my possession. So,
Excellent, John. Yeah, as the saying goes, if the cap fits, wear it, huh?
That's right. He swore that he would, and he kept his word.
Yeah. Excellent, John. Thank you very much. And folks, if you don't want to come on to say anything, just put a few words in the chat box. We're happy to get Helen to read them out, or I'll read them out, because I know some people aren't comfortable doing that. As you see, I'm not great at delivering this stuff, but I'll do my best for you, okay? Thank you, John. Okay, Helen, Max is there with his hand up. Hey, Max.
Hello. Hello. I was fortunate enough to take 2 classes from Nick, one in 2022 and one in 2024. And the last one was in wall sculptures, and I've got the things from my class on my walls in the house. And Nick was always gracious. If I had a question, I could email him and he would respond almost immediately. Or if I wanted a critique on something I was working on that I had learned from him, he would give me advice on how to make it better. And I just really appreciated getting to pick his brain going across the street at the Mexican place in Brooklyn and having lunch and getting to pick it's amazing to be able to sit with a world-class turner and just have Mexican food and talk.
Great story, Max. Well, you're obviously following on with what Colwyn said. Feed Nick, and he was happy.
Yes. That's all I had. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Ruby has a story now. Helen? Hey, Ruby.
Hi. I remember the first time I met Nick was the first time he and Glenn came over to the States, and it was a symposium, I think, in Cincinnati. And I was kind of standing behind him when he was demonstrating, taking photos of what he was doing. And every time he turned around and reached for another tool, I had it in hand and was handing it to him. And it became a joke that he felt like he was a surgeon with a nurse behind him that was prepping him for surgery. And for the rest of that weekend, we all referred to him as Dr. Nick. So it became kind of a joke between us.
Excellent. Thanks, Ruby. Just something I wanted, I should have said there. Thanks, Ruby. Brad, we're coming to you. Brad has something to say. I'm going to make this available to everybody on YouTube. If you don't, say your comments and tell us your story, but if you don't want me to leave it in there, just send me a note and I'll edit it out of it, okay? But if you're happy for me to leave it in it, you've all heard me saying that now, take it that you're in there, okay? So just forewarned is forearmed. Okay, Brad, coming for you now, buddy.
I just wanted to say one thing. Well, one day on our travels, we were driving along and Nick said something absolutely hilarious. And a couple hours later, I asked him what it was, and neither of us could remember it. So we decided I picked up a book, a nice little journal from Harrods, and we decided to write all of our funny stuff down. And so we sent it to Neil Turner in Australia, and he wrote some things down. And I know it's destined for Ireland now. We're going to get it to Emmett Kane. But if anybody would like to contribute to the book, the journal, get in touch with me. It's just braddavisstudios@gmail.com. And we'll try to get the book to you. And it's something I don't want to lose. And it's something very precious. But it was also something we'd like to share with everybody because it was exemplifies a lot of Nick's humor. So,
well,
anyway.
Brad, that sounds like a fantastic idea, but just on that note, would it be better if people maybe just sent you their comments and maybe you put them into it, that it won't get lost?
We could do that. I say Emma's gonna, the book's in England right now, but it's gonna go to Ireland, and then after Emma gets done with it, I'll probably send it back. But anyway, if they'd like to put some stuff in, I can do it that way as well. So.
Okay, Brad, will you put your details in the chat box there, Brad, and people can take them out of it, and Helen, keep them to one side, and what I'll do is I'll put them in the notes going out with this. If I may or may not put in the chat box into the link for this video. But thank you very much, Brad. That sounds like a great idea. Because everybody has stories, folks, and what Brad is doing would be a great, maybe it's something, Brad, to get some pictures and things in, you know. It could be something to somebody to print and put out there, and any funds maybe go to cancer research or something in Nick's name. So that could be a great idea for that. So thanks, Brad. Anybody else, Helen?
No, we haven't got anyone else wanting to come on at the moment. Oh, sorry, we have. Woody's just come in, so I will see.
Okay. We'll get Woody on, and then we'll do some of the photos, and I'll probably stop halfway through and we'll go back to it then. Maybe that's the best thing to do, okay?
Yeah. 2 seconds. I cannot find this guy.
Hey, Woody, where are you? Unmute Woody and say something. You'll come up to the top of the screen for Helen.
I'm here.
Okay, I see you. Okay,
Thank you.
there we go. Hey, Woody.
Good day. As I listen to all these stories, I just have so many memories. Nick is such an inspiration. I was so pleased to be able to go to his shop a number of times. And I was lucky enough after they left Brad Davis's on their whirlwind U.S. tour to get him and Colwyn to come over to Sioux Falls, South Dakota and teach for a couple of days. And everybody was so inspired by that. But the thing that really stood out the most to me was we decided to go out to dinner a couple of different times. And Colwyn was so excited about being in the Midwest and having a rack of ribs. And so we went to a small town that had recently opened, and I think it was called the Rib Shack, if memory serves me. And we were so excited, and Nick was excited for Colwyn, and Colwyn was excited to get there. So we went in, sat down, started looking at the menu, only to find out that they were out of ribs. And so the second night, we actually went to a Texas Roadhouse, and I've got a picture of Colwyn like he's ready to eat his last meal with a steak knife and a fork. And as much as Colwyn enjoyed the ribs, I think Nick enjoyed it just as much. It was like a prophecy fulfilled for both of them. And it was just such great memories. And I remember during that visit, you guys had a big poster of the Norwegian woodturning cruise and kind of promoting people to join in or sign up for it. And Nick had probably approached me 4 or 5 different times and said, Woody, you got to sign up for this. You'll never regret it. You'll meet new friends from all over the world. And I was lucky enough to eventually do it, go on that wonderful cruise with Nick and Colwyn and, gosh, just a whole group of new friends that, I'm so happy to say that I now have friends all over the world. And I really credit Nick and Colwyn, but especially Nick, for really encouraging that. And for me, it's a gift that'll keep giving the rest of my life.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Woody. Yeah, thanks. I'm sure he's up there beaming down on us now and probably blowing horn at Colwyn. And
I'm sure. I just want to know if Colwyn's had any more ribs since then.
Not as good as that one, though, Woody. But that's true, though, isn't it? That Nick got more pleasure from letting me do what I wanted to do, whether it was eating ribs, going to the rodeo, or whatever. He took such delight in doing that. I remember that night, Woody.
Yeah, it was
fun. I think the place is called Squealers.
Yeah, that's right. You're exactly right.
He must have been squealing, Colwyn, when there was no ribs the first night.
Oh.
Well, when you come back, we'll try it again.
Perfect. Lovely, Woody.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great stories. Okay, anybody else, Helen, or will we move on with some photos?
I think we can move on with photos for now. And if anyone else has got anything, just rack it up in the chat box for me.
Okie doke. Okay, so you can see that, Helen?
We sure can.
Right, let me get to my screen here. All right, so if you check out a lot of the photos, folks, you will see a name on them. In this case, it's Andy Wolf. So you all know Andy from most of our photographs are from the symposium. So I think he's a rather young-looking chap there. You probably agree. If anybody knows more information about any photographs, just hit something in the chat box for Helen to pick up on. and then we'll get you to unmute, okay? I'm not going to fly through them really quick. I have, I think, about 120 pictures here. One very short video, I think it was Marcel van Berkel sent in, just a very couple of seconds thing. But so anyway, I'm just going to go through these just gradually, okay? There's no time limits, never is on Meet the Woodturner, so I'm just going to take my time with it. So, yeah, so we know he's known for so much of his work with carving, decorating, texturing, and all sorts of things. He's definitely not a one-trick pony. So, and of course, his texturing, the master of that texturing tool on his Viking Sunset Bowl. And then whatever came to his hand, of course, was used to put some sort of indentation into the wood, whether it was a screwdriver, in this case, a countersink bit. It all was used. And of course, there's some of the masterpieces he did himself. You know, there's so many of us have tried these, but when you do see the genuine article, you know, he was the master of that particular piece. There's no two ways about it. And God knows what that is. It could be a nail or anything, and being put into it. I don't know the year on a lot of these. I do remember 2016 in Atlanta was an orange shirt. If somebody knows different, please put it in there. Helen, if anything is coming up in the chat box, I'm going to open it on my other computer just in case. Please shout at me, okay? Okay, and of course the airbrush, another one of his many talents that he shared with people. So there's pictures coming up with people as well, so I know the names of a lot of them. So of course there's Cynthia and Mike, and there's that poster that the guys were just talking about in the background for the cruise. Yeah, that is something I missed out on, unfortunately, and hopefully someday, if it is ever back, I would love to go on it. And then of course his off-centre work, again pictures from Andy Wolfe, and here's a couple of legends. Unfortunately, two of those guys are gone. That's Glenn Lucas with Ray Key beside him and Michael Hazelook. I don't think the hair quite suits those guys. Yeah, but unfortunately two of those guys are no longer with us now, so there he is doing his bowl again with some detail on it. And of course his King Arthur and his Merlin series. I think the guy's there. Of course, Don Rawlins Chromacraft. I'm not sure who that lady is, but maybe it's the good lady. I don't know. And there he is with his antlers on. And there's that hat, John. So, okay, so David Campbell. I am good friends with Don Rawlins, owner of Chromacraft, who helped Nick move to the States. I was one of the many who helped Nick move into his new shop. One Saturday night, Nick and I put the tin on the wall in the laid side of his studio, what he means by the galvanized sheeting. And he would make fun of me being a South Georgia redneck, and I would make fun of him being British. We spent the first month saying, being a South Georgia redneck, oh sorry, I beg your pardon. What did you say? Say that again, or you need to talk slower. We became very good friends. He would eat supper at our house a lot, along with my wife and twin daughters. We would talk, laugh, and enjoy each other's company. He made a natural edge vase for my birthday, and I will cherish it. I will miss my friend. So that's David Campbell. So, okay, so Paul Howard sent me over these. He made these for Nick Agar and Nick Cook, as you can see the names on them. And anybody has a Powermatic will understand what these are for. Spindle locks to hold in the button, or sorry, Jet 3520, kind of the same as the Powermatic, I guess. The lathes that he had. So thank you very much, Paul Howard. John Lucas sent over this picture to me. So this is his tribute to Nick Agar as well as Jimmy Buffett. I call it Bubbles Up. I chose the water top vessel because it's similar to a box. Sorry, I have a bar on my screen here and it's right in the middle for what I'm doing. It's similar to a box that Nick did as a demo for the TAW several years ago. I presume that's Tennessee Association. I didn't use the technique he used to create the water, but something similar. The song Bubbles Up was the last recorded song of Jimmy Buffett. I thought that described Nick's approach to life in that he was always looking up. I never got to spend any real time with Nick. Sorry, I'm going to see if I can move this bar out of my way here. Oh, I can. Great. I met him at SWAT Symposium, where we were demonstrating in the same room and both doing texture. I asked him, sorry, the wording is a bit askew there, did the same thing was a problem, and he said no. I did get to see some demos by him over the years. He did greatly improve my outlook towards turning and texturing, and was probably why I spent more time with the airbrush. I saw him several times at other symposiums, but we were both running in different crowds, and I never got to sit and talk with him, which I regret, but that's life. I think he changed wood turning as a whole with his approach to modifying the turnings. I greatly admire his teaching and demoing skill. He was a wonderful person and teacher and will be missed. Nice words indeed. Okay, Brad said that's Melissa, Don's wife. Thank you very much, Brad. There's some of these people I've never met, so I don't know. Helen, is there anything else there?
No, not at the moment, Pat, thank you.
Okay, so of course Lynn Reese, good friend, and Cheryl Lewis. So Cheryl sent me over this. Nick, I love being one of your assistants last year at the Tennessee Symposium. You've been an incredible inspiration to us, to so many of us in the wood turning world and beyond, and will forever be remembered with smiles and gratitude. You're one of the kindest and most talented turners I've ever met, and this is a legacy that would make any of us proud to have. Our hearts are with you. Know you are loved. Cheryl Lewis. Very nice words indeed, Cheryl. Okay, so this was, some of the pictures don't have names on them, so forgive me folks if you sent this and I don't have them on it. I think I have most of them covered. Of course, Nick in the zone demonstrating and teaching. Yes, these were Cheryl's as well, I believe. And of course, his name on his signature series of products, which he helped develop. And of course, we all know what that is. Oops, sorry. A few words there. Stephen Miller sent over this one. Hi Pat, was lucky to meet Nick at Turner's Retreat near Doncaster in 2016. His demonstration of the piece in the photo was most entertaining and very informative. He took the time to answer the many questions put to him, and I now know how much the wood turning community will miss him. I was inspired by an article in the Woodturning magazine to reproduce my version of a Viking sunset bowl using objects found around the workshop to complete the decoration. Not maybe to the standard Nick produced, but I thoroughly enjoyed making it. Cheers, Steve Miller. Well, I'm sure that's all that mattered to Nick, was that you enjoyed it. So, so this one was just a short video that Marcel Van Burkel sent over. So let's just see if I can get that to play. It's a very quick one. Come on. I've moved it into PowerPoint and there's so much going on in there, maybe it doesn't want to. So sorry, Marcel, but it was just Nick giving this lady a little bit of instruction. But thank you very much for sending it over. It's a great picture in itself. So I think this was David Buskell. No, actually it was David Woodward. I have more pictures coming up from him in a moment, but I know that piece. I've seen it finished. It's a fantastic piece. But I think he's a young looking man in there too. So, and of course at the lathe as always. Yes, and this was David Woodward, and I believe he sent me those pictures, or no, actually the upcoming pictures. So these were David Buskell that sent these ones. Apologies, I'm just trying to keep track of things here, folks. I have so many things open. I first met Nick back in May 2010. My club and a couple of others were displaying at the WL Westwood show together with two professionals. I know a lot of these names won't mean anything to some people, but you know, some of you can relate to the pictures at least. One professional was Colin Simpson and the other was Nick Agar. Colin was doing normal turning and Nick was creating wall sculptures and frightening us on the stands nearby with his use of the flamethrower. In the following years, I have met Nick at various shows, and over the last few years, he and I seem to be in the same lift on the way down to breakfast each morning at the AAW Symposium. R.I.P. Nick. Food seems to be the theme across with Nick. So somebody by the name of Joe West sent these over to David Buskell, and he sent them on to me. So these shots are from the 2010 WL Westwood show. This is one of Nick's shields, I would imagine. Yeah. And of course more of his off-centre work on a nice big substantial VB lathe. Okay, so I know that's Belinda Messenger and Graham Priddle. Not sure that gentleman on the left. And apologies for the name missing off of this one. While still in the learning stage of turning, I went as a passenger on the Woodturning cruise in Norway. I went down to the demo room where at least 4 turners were showcasing their skills for several hours, allowing you to stand right in front and watch. I had never heard of Nick Agar, but stood in front and watched him turn and texture a bowl. I was amazed at the result he achieved. That was my first time meeting him. Since then, I have seen him in many places and even worked as his assistant at one workshop. The Ohio State Symposium is held in a religious retreat. There was no bar or pub nearby. It was bring your own. Somehow every one of the demonstrators ended up in my room. Glenn Lucas, Andy Wolf, Ray Key, Michael Hosluck and a group of others, and of course Nick. He had us crying with laughter imitating Jethro, a very funny comedian. Jokes in the accent of the southwest county where the comedian came from, and I believe Nick had his studio. A night to remember. Yeah, Jethro was a character that Nick was very good at carrying off. Why do the names not show there? I beg your pardon, it's on the picture, Mike Gibson. And there is Mike with Nick again. And didn't he scrub up well? Marcel, I just see the movie did run when I downloaded it. It's just not running in the slideshow. So, and Colwyn, there you go. Is that the horn, Colwyn? Yeah. So, yeah. So Paul Howard sent me over these pictures. This is a picture of Nick running a hands-on day at the Sand and Wood Turners. I also have a sunset bowl I made at the UK studio. Paul showed us that earlier, another excellent example. And of course there he is dressed in all his finery again. Emma Cook there and some other gentlemen. Mike Wilson sent this one over actually. Photograph of Nick presenting a platter to the Worshipful Company of Turners in London, 2nd of April 2025. Not that long ago, guys. Paul McKernan. So, hello Pat and Helen. Thank you for organising this. I was lucky enough to know Nick for 15 years. I saw him demonstrate at several clubs around the country and was lucky enough to spend one memorable session in my workshop and several sessions at his East Cornworthy workshop. Perhaps studio would be a better description of his workshop, as it was a source of both inspiration and relaxation. I recall watching the River Dart drift by and relaxing even if we were throwing axes at the time. Anybody who's ever been to Nick's workshop will know exactly what you mean there about throwing axes and things. I did have that fun with him. During our session, Nick passed on some of his amazing skills, teaching me deep hollowing, large platters, airbrushing, gold leafing, and his signature Viking set bowl. More important than that was his incredible ability to generate designs, a skill that, like many turners, I do not feel I possess. However, Nick had the skill to create and turn any design into reality, and he opened my eyes to the wonderful designs. The two most precious gifts that Nick gave me were firstly his help in selecting my forever lathe. I had spent a year researching lathes and I was looking for two things. The lathe capacity must exceed my courage and it must make me smile every time I saw it. With Nick's help, I eventually bought a Magma Blackline Titan 315. And as he said, if you buy this lathe, you will never need another. He was right. And every time I enter the workshop, I smile and think of him. However, the most precious gift that Nick gave me was his friendship. I will miss his cheerful approach to turning, even in my workshop, where the ceiling is a bit low for a tall and slightly claustrophobic person like Nick. Goodbye, my friend, and thank you for the gift of your time. And these were the pictures also sent over. And here is that wonderful lathe that Paul gets to smile at every time he sees it. So I'm sorry you're having to listen to me so much today, folks. As you know, it's normally the guest does all the talking, but it's the only way I could think to put this together. Is there anything else, Alan?
There is not at the minute, Pat, no.
I am getting a very dry throat here already. I'm not used to talking so much. And there is, of course, one of the Sunset Bowls, Viking Sunset Bowls. So, Max, and apologies on the name, Max, if I say this wrong, Max Stetter. These are photos of projects I started at Nick's studio in 2022 and 2024, then finished at home. The fish platter is 11 inches diameter. The wall sculpture is 12 by 12. The next wall sculpture is 18 inches in diameter, is maple finish with garnet shellac. So these are the other pieces from Max. And you can really see Nick's influence in those, can't you? So, okay, so Pat Wisniewski. Sorry about the name, Pat, if I say it wrong. This past October, I spent a week at Brad Davis's place in Iowa with a fine group of turners, which included Nick. We were there for a class with Hans and Jacob Weisflog, lucky you. Nick generously shared his knowledge and technique as was his way. At last year's AAW symposium, Brad and I were paired for the IG collaboration for the upcoming symposium. I deconstructed my piece and renewed it as a memorial piece in remembrance of Nick, entitled Point of Departure. Thanks for doing this. You're very welcome. Yeah. Okay. Mike Zinzer. I took a class at Aramount in 2007 with Nick. I've always thought it was his first venture to the United States, maybe or maybe not. I think it might have been a bit earlier than that. If anybody knows, please let me know. That class has had an enormous influence on my turning ever since. He's been here in Nashville several times to both demonstrate for the Tennessee Association of Woodturners for the day and as a featured demonstrator at our symposium. Nick was so generous with his time and willingness to impart his skills on everyone, and he met at any and all of his events. But best of all, he had a special talent for making you feel like you were his special friend. I'm sorry that his life was cut short. If you never met him, it was your loss. Indeed, Mike, indeed. Okay, Helen, there's something come in there, was there?
There is. There's a nice long one there from John McGee. Would you like to read it, or do you want me to?
Oh, you go for it. People are sick listening to me.
Okay, before I do, I just want to point out, Pat, that horn is just beside your ear on the left as well, looking at it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, people can't see me at the moment. They're looking at the screen share. Yeah, well spotted.
John McGee has said, I first met Mick on the 2004 Norwegian cruise. I was concerned when I saw him mount a huge square piece of board and doing offset cuts for a wall piece. Learned a lot from Nick on that cruise and subsequent cruises. My oldest grandson, Ivan, was on 2 of the cruises, including the 2018 cruise. He and Nick struck up a friendship that was enhanced by the 2018 cruise. In 2013 or 2014, I encouraged John Lane to contact Nick to demo at the Alaskan Woodturners Association, and we got Nick there with Glenn Lucas for fantastic demos and hands-on classes. I took all of Nick's classes, and we certainly all gained in our development as woodturners. His contribution to the education and further advancement of woodturning was significant by any measure. He was truly an inspiration, and his physical presence is missed, but his memory will live on.
Yeah, good words, John, and all very true. Yeah, and again, I just want to thank everybody that has sent in so much stuff. I'm 52 pictures into 120. I don't have a huge amount of text on a lot of them, but I'm not missing anything, folks. So people are good enough to send it in. I'm going to read it. So apologies for listening to my dulcet tones for so long, but thank you, Helen. If there's anything else, just shout. Okay, so Shirley Sinclair and Jonathan Cuff, they are the owners of the Daniel collection in the UK, and they have a lot of Nick's work. They were probably Nick's biggest fans, I would say, and the next is just some images of his work. And of course, what collection wouldn't be complete with, of course, one of his Viking Sunset Bowls. Maybe you recognize some of these pieces, but this one I remember well, and I always thought this was just so like a shell, and I just thought it was a beautiful piece. And of course, you know, his contemporary touches that he put in. There's a beautiful little flower in the center of that, just awesome. So thank you, Shirley, for sending those over. And if you go to Facebook and check out the Daniel Collection page, you will see a lot more pieces. Or just even look up the Daniel Collection on Google. Helen, maybe if you have a minute, just get a link to that, please. Pop it in there for people to see. There's some good artists in there. Nick's is the one we're talking about today anyway. So, and of course, more of his off-center pieces. Kerry Pearson. I was fortunate enough to have seen Nick demonstrate on the 9th of July 2023. I went to East Herts Club with my dad. This is in the UK. Tony, who had known Nick for many years. Nick was very inspiring. I thought he had a great sense of humour, and he was such a lovely man who will be truly missed by so many of us. Tony Sutherby, my dad, met Nick back in 2005, possibly through Jimmy Clues. This goes back to what Colin was saying about, you know, sharing each other's friends, if you like, in all of this. You know, Jimmy was another good one, is a good one for sharing friends, as Nick did. And, you know, they created huge circles of friends. Yeah, Jimmy Clue's dad was doing the club demos, and then Nick came to demonstrate. He stayed with my mum and dad each time he came and joked that my mum always fed him lasagna, but he said it was the best. Here we go with the food again, Nick. Dad says it was through Nick that he learned shape and form, which is now the most important part of his wood turning. Nick, Joey Richardson and Dave Springett tried to talk Dad into going RPT. He didn't. The RPT is the Registered Professional Turners in the UK. But he appreciated that Nick thought he was good enough. He has many fond memories of Nick, and some wonderful pictures that she sent over. So, of course, doing what he does. And that's Kerry. So there's that bubble effect, if you like, or that John Lucas replicated. So Nick was able to get a great finish on those things. Okay, so Marcus Nieben. In May 2017, I met Nick at the presentation of the book about Fritz Burkhoff, together with Hartmut Lobert. We have lost a good friend. Apologies, folks, if I'm destroying your names. Kevin Dalton. So a local world-renowned hardware store, Hartville Hardware, has a tool sale twice a year, one in February and one in November. In November of 2022, Nick Agar was one of the featured demonstrators during the tool sale. The hardware provided lathes on the shop floor for the Robert Sorby guys, Nick, and the BWWT guys. That's the Buckeye Woodturners, I believe. Sherry Horn, Nick Hagar, Crown Tools, Bill Stone, Don Horn, Darryl Jones, and they're all from their different companies and whatever. Nick was an absolute joy to talk with and was always very sharing with his techniques and his supplies. He gave us all free samples of the chestnut dies of various colours. He also left his demonstration pieces for the Buckeye Woodturners group, which were auctioned off during our annual club auction. I acquired one of those pieces from our auction. Thank you, Kevin. Great piece to have for sure. And Mike Doyle. Here's a picture of Nick with Mike Doyle. And if you notice, Mike Doyle is wearing a ridiculous shirt. I wish he would button up that shirt. Okay, come on. Not sure who that gentleman is, but as you can see, Nick has him almost choking laughing, which wasn't uncommon. So, and come on, there we go. I'm sure a lot of people will recognise this guy, Mr. Stuart Mortimer, a legend in the wood turning world. So here's Nick having a snooze. And I just thought it was a great setting, you know, on the bottom of it, you tell me, established. Yeah. Annie Ogue, with more of the off-centre work and a fantastic shield that Annie has there. So there was a lot of pictures that I did take off the internet, so apologies if some people have more information than me on these, if I'm missing anything. And here he is at the Worshipful Company of Woodturners and all the guys in their finery. And of course the lovely Barbara Han, a lovely lady, a regular visitor to Nick's workshop and all of his demos. I would say one of his biggest fans for sure. And I don't think there's any publications where he hasn't made the cover of several times. So, and of course there he is with his good buddy Jimmy Clues. And again, I mentioned the video with Colwyn. We have the other one up where the two guys were making the shield. Lots of stuff up there for you all to see. And, you know, we do advise, go watch it. And, of course, there's Nick and Colwyn when they were on their 7,000-mile trip across America. So couldn't you imagine the fun that these two guys were getting up to? And if you were a fly on the wall for some of the conversations, it must have been brilliant. And of course, we know Nick loved all of his antiques, so he was obviously probably trying to bring home some of those. And there's more of his work. And of course, there's that truck that did all of those miles. And you can see the kind of support he had with just the names on it, with Robust, Ex-Minister Tormac, Crown Tools, King Arthur, just to name a few. So, you know, he was held in such high regard, and, you know, getting your name up in Mark Adams, well, you know, isn't that say at all, really? And I just thought that was a fantastic picture of his sunset bowls. Okay. And before I go ahead, you can see there is that horn that Colwyn talked about, that he would blow. And there is one of his wonderful creations. So the one thing about Nick was wherever he went, he took hundreds of photographs. And the thing was, and I remember Binfo saying the same to me, was don't just look at the overall item. Go in close, look at those surfaces. There's so many textures there right in front of you just to try put onto pieces. And it was just brilliant to just replicating these things. Okay, and again, just adding some detail to his work. Helen, is there anything else there that people want to say, or anybody, any comments?
There's some lovely comments in the chat box here. So Marcel van Berkel has said at the auctions of the AWGB biannual symposiums, when Nick acted as the auctioneer, he would get amazing values or prices of the donated pieces in the most hilarious ways. I can just imagine. Margaret Garrod's commented, she says, Nick touched the lives of many of us in the woodturning world. He will be missed very deeply by us all. He would live in her heart always. And there's a comment from Keith Gottschall. He says, cheers, everyone. We will all miss our great friend Nick. He was a great big part of my life. I'm still gutted at his loss. R.I.P, my friend.
Nice words indeed. Yeah, and if anybody ever saw Nick at the start of a demo, he used to wreck a sound man's head because he would always be talking very intermittently, making out that there was something wrong with the microphone or the sound, and there was guys running everywhere to push cables in, tap the microphone, Nick, and of course Nick would make out he was tapping it once out of 3 times, and he used to wreck guys' heads, and they thought that the sound was wrong and all sorts of things. And I do remember a time when there was a guy wanting to come up and video Nick doing the demo at a show, and every time the guy turned on the camera, Nick would pause, and the guy said, "Why do you stop every time you turn on the camera?" And Nick said quite simply, "Well, you didn't ask me, could you video, did you?" So it was, a little bit of courtesy and respect, and I agree with him. I think he was right. So in 2017, I went down to Nick for 3 days to do some, not turning, but I have a few more pictures later on, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But that was one of the pieces he had on the lathe But anyway, we'll get back to that in a minute. So, of course, there he is in his finery, demonstrating again. So I have 28 pictures left, folks. So please, if you have anything to say, throw it in there. I don't want this to be ending too quick. And I like the way he very subtly signed that in there in that piece, you know, just, it's there, but enough to have it. And Jason Breach, of course, another fantastic turner from the UK, and good friends together, him and Nick, and of course Colwyn, one of Colwyn's work colleagues. So, and there we are there again with Jason. So this is down in Australia at the David Dresler's event at SeaWorld, and what a fantastic event as well. You know, we talk about all these things, but again, very unfortunately missing some people out of here. So we've been Foe in the front, no longer with us, and Mark Baker here, Woodturning editor, and passed away as well. And again, the unfortunate part of it is those three guys, Nick, Ben and Mark, all died from cancer. So I think Mark was esophagus, Ben was prostate, I think, free to correct me. So talking to the guys here, don't be afraid to go to the doctor, guys. You know what he's going to do when he's checking your prostate, but man up and get the bloody thing done, okay? I know I got it done a few years ago, and I wasn't overly impressed, and the doctor was on crutches, and I honestly felt he was using the crutch, to be quite honest about it. But you know, we have to do these things, so man up and go. And ladies, look after yourselves too, okay? Whatever it is, you know, if things aren't going right, it doesn't take much to go to the doctor just to get a test or a checkup. You're never going to be made seem foolish. You know, if your car is broke down, you know it's broke down. But if you have an issue, maybe it's just a headache, whatever. But look after yourselves, folks, okay? Roberto Ferrer sent me over a couple of pictures. I think it was Roberto Ferrer, yeah. I met Nick Agar in 2014 while he was demonstrating at our local symposium. During those days, it was hard for me to get away from work, so assisting conferences and workshops was not my main priority. I believe I should be attending, but however. When I found out Nick was coming to Chicago, I took some time off and registered for one day. As I saw his demonstrations, I was impressed not only by his amazing artistic skills, but also by his ability to explain the techniques in a way that was easy to follow. As time went by and I got more involved in woodturning, I was fortunate to make his acquaintance and to chat for a few minutes every time we met at an event. He was always welcoming and generous with his advice. Last time we spoke in Chicago, right before we received the news about his illness, I introduced him to my family, and he gifted my daughter a few sets of his airbrush stencils. The woodturning community has not only lost a true master, but also an amazing human being. Best, Roberto. Yeah, wow. Some great words for this man. So more of his airbrushing, and I think that rim is really fitting for that, the zebra colours on it. And of course he visited South Africa as well, 2019. I don't think it was anywhere the man didn't go, so some names I recognise there and some I don't. Of course Miss Bailey is going to South Africa in a little while too, aren't you, Helen?
Sure am.
Okay, any comments, Helen?
Not that we've missed yet, no, apart from there's a few people saying go get your blood tests and it's worth it.
Yeah, I see Kevin saying only a blood test now. I think my doctor just wanted to have fun with me, you know. He just wanted to, you know, first thing any man checks when he goes into the doctor is to see how big his hands are, isn't it? Come on, guys, we all know you do that, so.
Can we just check it? Bill Mooney's waving at the camera. Can we just check? Is he wanting to speak?
For sure, if Bill can unmute, we're happy to have Bill say something. Bill, are you able to unmute? And I'll stop the share. Bill is a very highly respected woodturner from the UK, and if we can get him to unmute. Can you ask him to unmute, Helen, and he might be able to just click the button then?
I have done, we're just...
So Bill is visually impaired, so he may not be able to see the button, folks, so apologies, Bill, if you're not able to. I know you can hear me, but if you manage to unmute, Bill, we'll come back to you, okay? Just check the bottom left of your screen if you can, and don't worry, we will stop at any time that you do. So, and of course, Nick was able to get some fantastic timbers as well. That looks like a beautiful piece of ash. So, and of course, he was brilliant at playing to the camera. There's no two ways about it. He should have been a movie star, I reckon. So, I think Bill is unmuted. Can you hear you, Bill? Speak to me.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, let me stop sharing, Bill, until we put you on there. Okay, Helen, if you'll spotlight Bill. There you go, Bill. How are you?
Not so bad, thanks. I've got to say that Nick does have a place in everybody's heart. I met Nick first in 2009 at the AWGB seminar, and I caught him on his own, asked him a few questions, and I really got a private one-to-one. And I've got to say that when I came home, there was a little bit of Nick came with me. He was on my shoulder when I went on the lathe. I met him again at our club when he came to do a demo, and he remembered and he came over and he spoke. He was a true gent. He really was. And when I found out he had the cancer, I sent him a comment, I sent him a message. And of course, of all the thousands that he would get, I thought, well, it'll be lost. But I did get an answer. As you know, Pat, I'm in the same situation that I'm having treatment. And I told him that we would beat it together. And I got really a lovely reply, which it really struck me. And I'll remember what he said as long as I live. And another guy who you mentioned before, who was a true friend of mine as well, was Mark Baker. And I would put Nick and Mark on the same level of true friends. And I just I've listened to what was said, and with great respect to Nick, because he was a wonderful fella. As I say, I only met him twice. But when I came home, I brought Nick with us. And I just wanted to let people know that what's being said is true. A lovely gent.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bill. And I hope your treatment is going well too. Bill Mooney, folks, a legend in the wood turning community for sure. So thank you, Bill. Yeah, oh wow. It's a tough one, folks, I have to say. So some fantastic words attached to some of those photos, and I'm definitely not doing them justice, not exactly reading them poetically or anything. So is there anything there, Helen, that in the chat box?
Yeah, there's a comment. I can't pronounce this name. Karel van der, lovely person, says the last piece of the zebra is in my possession from the 2019 South African Symposium. Joined the stage with him. Great memories. That's fantastic.
Thank you, Carol. And Helen and myself are awful at reading out people's names, so we do apologise, folks. So as no disrespect if we're saying them wrong, okay? We don't plan to do this purposely before or during meetings or whatever. So anybody else, folks? I'll go back. I don't have many photos left, but you know, if you have any comments, just please put them in there, or just shout. Helen will unmute you, spotlight you, whatever. So no matter how trivial you think it is, you know, it could be very relevant to the stories that we're hearing. But if not, I will share the screen again. And where were we? Okay. All right. So I get my slideshow. What's that, Helen?
Same, we've got you back on screen there, the slideshow. Thank
you very much. All right. So, yeah, as I was saying earlier, he was brilliant at playing to the camera and playing to audiences and things. And, you know, whatever about his turning ability, his entertainment value was just, it was priceless. You know, anybody was holding an event, I'm sure he was probably the first one that would think of to get there. So, and of course, I remember, I think it was around 2004 or 5, he was in Ireland, and he was doing one of the Irish Woodturning symposiums. And it was a Sunday morning, and I had never really met Nick prior to that. And I might have had 1 or 2 lemonades the night before and maybe a little bit tired. And I was watching this guy making this bowl, and then he did some texture, did some texture. And then he added this stuff called verdigris wax and then some gilt cream. And I have to say, I literally jumped out of the chair with excitement when I saw the finish that he was creating with these products. And once that demo was over, I was straight out to the vendors and I got 2 tins of verdigris wax and some gilt cream, copper gilt cream, and the finishes. Now, this is Nick's own chromacraft that he was involved with creating. He was using different products, but similar results. But I just thought it was absolutely phenomenal. So, yeah, thank you for that. That's not alcohol at the late, folks. Okay. So he doesn't have any of his wood turning gear on, so I'm sure it's just a picture he's posing at. So this was a picture sent to me. This was Nick picking up Hans Weissflug from the airport. So couldn't you imagine somebody coming to pick you up dressed like that? So I'm sure there was a good giggle over that one. So okay, so of course there he is doing his texture on the bottom of the Viking Sunset Bowl. Stuart Batty, Mike Mahoney, Keith Gotchell, and Mark Hancock. A lot of talent in that picture for sure. Judging by the size of the room, it looks like probably an AAW event. Actually, if we zoom in maybe under badges, I never thought to do that. No, 2 pixel ahead. But I would hazard a guess it's one of the AAW events. Anybody knows, let me know. Okay. And of course, making the shavings fly. And one of the big things these days is getting people to ask people to sign the lathes. And if you look at the date on that, 23, not that long ago, is it? So of course, here's Nick doing some of his talking about shape, design and form, which he was really good at. I believe this was down in Nick's workshop down in Devon. So, as I said, in 2017, I went down to Nick for 3 days. And after the first evening, we went out for something to eat. And he said, I'm going to bring you somewhere. He said, where I go. And this is an old graveyard here. You can see the tombstone, whatever you'd like to call it, headstones to your left. But Nick was saying this tree was thousands upon years old. And he said he often thought about what that tree had actually seen through history. And we had a really good conversation there. And, when you take Nick out of the, how can I say it, the demonstrating teaching mode into real life, and he's just talking about things in general, he's just so insightful and just, you could listen to him all day long. But when I went down to him for the 3 days, he said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, well, for one, I don't want to turn. I'm not too bad at the turning. I need to improve. We all do. So I said, I want to look at design and shape and textures and things. So probably the first day we sat at that table talking, looking at books, and you can see all of these little post-its here. And we wrote a ton of notes and things. And we went out then, and he was actually, to see him he was really excited as well about some of the things that he was thinking of, things to do with his work and whatever, and we were just batting ideas off each other. And so this was just some of the stuff we were doing, different textures and things that I wanted to do. Some I still want to do, I never got around to. One of the things was this bowl here I brought with me. We were just doing some pyro, and I actually did incorporate that design into a piece. And I was really chuffed with it, and full credit to Nick on the design that I did achieve. And so there he was with his little Presto, and using it like a little router to do some design on a piece. So Cindy Droz sent me over this piece. She said it was inspired by Nick, a box that she had made. So you can imagine the caliber of work that Cindy is producing. So to giving credit to Nick as well. So that's really good of Cindy. And of course, another Viking Sunset Bowl. Um, so this was probably after he had a good old dinner. These are the pictures that Brad sent me over. Ever the Joker, no two ways about it. You know, things up under his shirt, but his workshop, I was supposed to visit it and do some classes during COVID, but unfortunately restrictions didn't allow me to go and I missed out. But I would have given anything to get to that workshop. It must have been fantastic, and I'd say anybody who was there must have loved it. And this is more pictures that Brad sent over. Brad, are you still with us, Brad? Is that Nick with the beard, or is this just a separate picture?
No, that's Nick with a beard. If you look at his tattoo on his arm, his left arm, that's...
Of course, yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if it was something that he, knowing Nick, he would have put a wig type thing on, so...
That was the real deal there. That was real fur on him.
Yeah, okay. And of course, this multi-purpose lathe here, I think that's the old original corner. There was a multi-purpose thing with plane or table, so all sorts of things. But yeah, well, there you go. There he was back in the day. And wasn't he a handsome young man there, huh? A rock star, huh? So they were great pictures, Brad. Thank you very much. And then one left, folks. Yeah, so rest in peace, Nick. You will be missed, buddy. Alrighty, folks, that is everything that I have. So, as I said, we're passing on jokes, passing on draws, all that stuff today. But if anybody has anything, please, that you want to further add, Sean, Stacey, I see you. We're coming for you.
Yeah, I'll get that one, Pat.
There you go. Thanks, Ellen.
Hi, Pat. I had the pleasure of being one of Nick's real best friends, and he's changed my life, and I'd just like to express that, what he's taught and what he showed me and the things we experienced, for both of us, actually, because we first met, and I was always, he was doing about 20 years ago, and he was doing a demo at Yandles, and he always remembered me because I was the only bloke he thought ever in a suit that actually watched one of these demos and kind of wanted a lesson. But over the 20 years, we've become friends, and I've had the pleasure of spending the last 6-7 months a lot in his company, and it's just been an incredible time, really. He's looked very positively, and we've talked, and I'm very lucky to have an awful lot of his work, a lot of his tools, and all of that stuff, and it's just inspirational every time I go in my workshop. But I have got something I'd like to share. Just talking about photos. You said when we looked at these photos, we had over 7,000 photos from his journeys around the world, and they're just incredible. You know, his eye for detail in taking a photo was just brilliant. And also, he gave me just over 200 photos, which are printed off, and they're going to go on his coffin on Thursday. We're going to all stick them on, and a lot of the photos you've shown and the ones he gave me are some of the classes, some of his work, and the people he's met around the world. And it was his wish that that these were shown and stuck onto his coffin, which we'll be doing. So, as you've mentioned, these photos were a massive, massive thing. You know, I'm not sure if this is going to come out, but I've got something which is very special to me. I can only show on my phone. I don't know if everyone can see that.
Yeah, just back to you a little bit, Sean, please. There you go. Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
Well, that is Nick at his very last time at a lathe in my workshop, a few weeks before he died. And if you can, I don't know if I can blow it up a bit, but the look on his face, I think says it all.
Yeah.
You know, and it's obviously very personal to me, but I like to share it with everyone because, you know, it just showed his love for what he did. And he did say that's the first time in 6 months he'd actually been at a lathe. And I had the pleasure of sharing that with him. And it's obviously a very dear thing for me, but I thought I'd like to share it with everyone here tonight because, you know, it sums Nick up. You know, he's, you know, it's...
Yeah, well, a great memory to have, Sean. Thank you very much. And that sounds a wonderful thing to do, putting all the photographs on the coffin. So
yeah, it was Nick's wish.
Yeah,
you know, with Polly's sister. We kind of sat down and we talked. He talked about, and he had the time to plan it, even though and we did it. It was always a very positive movement forward. And he wanted a cardboard coffin and these pictures put over it of his life. Like Cohen said. I know Cohen well, and we shared a lot of sad times together. And but Nick was always positive. This is what it's going to be. Sadly, you talk about prostate cancer. 8 years ago, I had very bad prostate cancer, and Nick I went to London for 3 months every day, and like Nick would drive me sometimes, and we'd sit and we'd just talk about things when he was home. And like I said, I would emphasise if anyone get checked. Only thing that saved my life, and was going at exactly the right time. If I'd left anymore, I wouldn't have been here now. But I just want to share that picture really, and
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that, Sean, and I appreciate you sharing that and good advice. People, go get yourself checked, folks. Okay, we'll do another checkup. Thank you very much.
And I would add to that, get a second opinion, because I had lucky enough, I went private eventually, but the NHS gave me something on a Friday, so I was okay, and on the Monday I was very ill.
Okay, that's good advice.
It's even just get another opinion and keep checking, and it's
Yeah. It's like we say about the woodturner, Sean. Get other people's tuitions. Get another doctor's opinion. No. In all seriousness, and not making light of it, but thank you very much.
I tell you something I also got which is very special is all of Nick's. You see in a little bow in that picture, or you were in when you were doing your biography, the one that he kind of heavily metallized. And I was very lucky when he went to America. He couldn't take much because of the wood situation and moving it. So I have like all his practice pieces, and he was going to burn them. And I said, no. And the inspiration I have from having probably 20 or 30 of his practice pieces and stuff that was just lying around the workshop is incredible. He was so advanced in his thought pattern. It's just incredible.
Better than any encyclopedia for research. Just look at Nick's practice pieces, Yeah.
He always taught me, don't buy a woodturning book. Look other ways to sources, and I think they were very wise words. He looked at the way he's looking at form in the book when you were there, and that was a book he probably showed nearly every student he went to, because it was a book about shaping in pottery. If I'm a book which we probably all have now because of Nick. But yeah.
And just on when you mentioned the funeral, Sean, anybody that received the email for tonight's login details, the funeral is there, folks, and it will be on YouTube for a while. So if you don't get there on the 12th, it will be available on YouTube. At least you just have a dip in, have a look and see, and definitely going to look at to see hopefully see all the photographs, Sean. So, and obviously we want to be
great.
We will have to be
great.
of course, but any pictures that we can see of it would be excellent, but obviously with great respect. So yeah. Thank you very much, Sean. Appreciate that.
Thanks for the time.
You're very welcome.
For my best friend, it's incredible. Thank you.
No problem at all. He's all our friends. So yeah. Okay, Helen, I think we have. Thank you, Sean. We have Pat Miller there, I think, next.
Mm-hmm. There we go, Pat.
How are you doing, Pat? Get you to unmute there, Pat, please. There you go.
I think we're now. Thanks for doing this, guys.
Well, we're not doing this for Pat. You muted yourself again, but we're not doing this for us. We're doing this for everybody, because we all need to celebrate moments like this. And I have to say I have a couple of regrets, folks, and I'm sorry I didn't do this with John Jordan as well. I was going to do this with Mark Baker when he passed away, and unfortunately one thing and another with my schedule and things, but I didn't get any information off of people. But I am so pleased with what I did receive from people there, and thank you all so much for your time and efforts, and for people coming on with your words. I just reiterate, and this is not for me to Woodturner, this is for Nick Agar. We're not trying to get any favour here with anyone. We just thought it was a good idea. We could all get together and have a chat about it, and this was the best platform for it. So I'm just going to say thanks on behalf of Nick, maybe, if that's allowed, for everybody's kind words towards him. So yeah.
Very good job too. Thank you so much for doing this. Karen and I were newbies. And I suppose it's probably been 9-10 years ago when we first saw Nick live, and it was a symposium, I think maybe in Utah. And we were just the wet behind the ear newbies in the audience, watching the greats of woodturning, do their thing up in front, and it was really pretty cool. We weren't known at all, and I had spent a little time on social media, kind of showing our journey and some of the things we've been doing. But right in the middle of this demo, Nick kind of stopped and he said, "Well, look, we have Pat and Karen Miller in the audience." And it was like, what a shock. And he went on and said, nice thing. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that, being kind of brought into the family. And Karen and I, when the demo was over, we tried to get up at that time to say hi and thanks to Nick. And as always, he was swamped by well wishers and the people that to talk to him, and so we saved that for another time. But as we're walking out of the demo and kind of down the hallway like a couple of school kids, we looked over at each other and stared at each other's eyes and said, "Nick Agar knows us." And it was just, but I think the idea that we kind of pass on the good stuff that people of his stature and others have taken the time to bring newer folks into the family, and I think that's one of the most wonderful things that we can do is to pass this on and make this a welcoming and good place to be. So anyway, thanks for just letting me share that with you guys.
Thank you for sharing, Pat. And as I mentioned earlier, the one thing about Nick was he made everybody at every level feel so comfortable. He didn't care whether you were turning 2 days or 20 years. Everybody was on the same level with him. And if he could help you, he would. But he didn't run away from you as a newbie up to the professional turner and treat people different or kiss ass to the people who were there for 20 years. He was good to everybody. And that's why I think many reasons everybody was drawn to him. So, okay, Kylan, there's comments coming in there. If you would like to address those, get you on there.
There's a comment from Martin. He says, in the beginning of 2022, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Having gone through the various treatments, I am still here, though the treatment is ongoing. As it's been said many times, go to the doctors and get checked by asking for a PSA test done. A visit to the doctors does save your time and keeps you alive a little longer. R.I.P. Nick.
Look, folks, most of us have cars and vehicles. We're supposed to get them to the garage regularly for checkups to keep us motoring around safely. You need to do the same with this old carcass that's carrying us around, okay? Male, female, or whatever. I don't want to do this for any more of you guys, okay? So just hang in there and everybody go look after yourselves, because it's a great old community. So yeah, it's been a tough one for sure. It's going to be tough going forward, with lots of things, and lots of discussions with several people over the last few weeks about this and doing this and one thing and another since Nick's passing. There's people out there that if we don't help to try keep their memories alive, there's lots of pictures of people's work and things going around, but I think people will be making sunset bowls forevermore. But when you do see people making things and laying claim to the people that have inspired us, they're laying claim to their work. It's no harm, just Facebook, for example, put in a friendly little comment. Nice to see Nick Agar's inspiration there. Nice to see Ben Foe's. It's amazing over the years the number of people that people don't recognize their names just because the wording on social media. There's so many fantastic turners that most of us here now would not have a clue at what we're doing if it wasn't for our predecessors with all of their turnings, their skills, their creativity, and things like that. We're very lucky that Nick was in the age of all of the internet. As much as he hated it, anybody knows Nick knows he hated computers and technology. Oh my God, the number of times I was talking to him during the start of his Zoom and IRDs, and he taught me swear words that I didn't know existed, trying to get things connected. But I moderated for him on a few of those, and we did have fun as well. But basically just trying to say, let's try to keep some of these guys' names alive, and not just fall into the history and be forgotten. So yeah, we're getting near the end, I think, Helen. But I just thanks to Helen for keeping an eye on things in the background, and messing up all those people's names, Helen. I know you never let me down. So yeah, no, but yeah, thank you all so much. Yeah.
There's lots of words in the chat box here, but we've got brilliant man, such an inspiration, a lovely man. There's so many to go through there, but thank you everybody for just lovely words.
Yeah, no, I'm
pictures and memories.
So yeah, and thanks to Nick's brother-in-law sent me over all that information. I can't thank anybody enough for being here alone. Thank you all for joining in. It's good to have you there. Pat wants to show a photo. Yes, Pat, you sure can. Just spotlight Pat there, Helen, or I haven't. There we go. Okay, there you go, Pat. Tell us about that one, Pat. Just on mute, please.
Well, the lidded vase. There's something on the screen here. The lidded vase was made by Brad Davis. This is the collaboration piece. And I had done something else with it, but I took it apart and put it together on this piece called A Point of Departure as a Remembrance. And one other view. Let's see. Of the bird taking flight.
Very nice.
As though Nick are leaving this sphere.
There's a little part that can be with a lot of us forevermore, I think, anyway, Pat. So yeah, but a really nice thank you for sharing that. So and remember, folks, as we said, no donations or anything were asked for here tonight or anything like that, but we would just ask you, just maybe if you have a few dollars, euros or whatever, just consider the charity that you're giving it to, whether it's cancer or whatever, just try to help out some of these things. It's no harm to do a little bit of research on charities too. The CEOs driving around in a Lamborghini is not the charities that I would generally give to, so, but I'm sure you can all find something to give a few bucks to, okay? We don't need to know, we're not looking for receipts or anything like that, just, it's because somebody down the line is going to benefit from it, and maybe yourself someday, okay? Alrighty, so feel free to unmute, folks. That's me done and dusted. You've listened to me waffle enough. Did my best to deliver that the best I could for you. It's the only way I could think to put it together. And thank you, Helen, for all your help. So, bump. So I'm going to remove the spotlight. Anybody wants to unmute or whatever, folks, work away.
Just like to say thank you, Pat and Helen. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for your contribution as well. So everybody on here contributed to it. Thank you, even by just being here. So it was good.
Well, the comments that have been made have awakened other memories of Nick for me. And I thank everybody for that.
Yeah, that's nice, John. Yeah, that's the important thing, John. Your little note on social media, your website or something will awaken or create a memory for somebody else of not just Nick, for other turners, the people that have come before us, So yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. There's a lot of young people there now, influencers and whatever in social media. And if you said to them, Ed Moultrop made fantastic pieces, they're going to just look at you with a blank face. Who the hell is Ed Moultrop? And it's like that guy, God, I even have drawn a blank here, Dougie. I have to go back now. You see the, oh God, what was his second name?
Lucy down.
So the people like that, sorry, but having people like that in our life pre-social media that we will never have heard of. But imagine being the person who was running the workshop that Nick Agar and Richard Raffin and God knows who else came from. That's just, the mind boggles on that. So yeah, Alrighty, so if everybody's happy with that, I'm going to call it a day. I will make this available for you to watch anytime you want. I'll send out a link in the email. I'll put it up on, I won't put the link up on social media, but, or well, the YouTube I can. It's login details I don't put on because of just Zoom bombers and things like that. I think they're a thing of the past anyway, but I still don't put out public links to the meetings, but everybody gets the email. All right, Miss Bailey, shall we call it a day?
Yeah, I think we should. Thank you everybody for participating, and lovely words in the chat box and all the videos. And Pat, you've done a brilliant job.
Well, I think we did a brilliant job, but anyway. Can I ask one last thing before you go, folks? It's 2 weeks until the next Meet the Woodturner. If nothing else, try do something with a hint of Nick Agar in it for show and tell next time, would you? Or even make a piece and get it up on social media, whether it's an old piece or not. So let's just, Sean was saying about the funeral and everything else and all the photographs, fantastic thing. I would have been thinking it'd be amazing to flood the internet with Nick Agar for the next week. That every time you turn the bloody thing on, I want to see something from Nick every so often in the feed. And even if it's only to share somebody else's, just flood the hell out of the internet with him, because if people don't know him, they're not woodturners, and then they do need to know him. So there's your homework, okay? We've never given out homework, have we, Helen? So if you have a piece that you've made before, a picture, any of the pictures you sent in here tonight, put them out there, okay? And we'll flood the hell out of the bloody thing, okay? So that's what it's there for. Alrighty, on that note, folks, go do your homework, and we shall see you all very soon. And thank you all so much again.
Good night.
Bye for now, folks. Thank you all.